What is the scariest yet most realistic future film ever made? I think it was a movie called The Day After Tomorrow. I might be wrong about the title though. I watched it with my mom when I was a kid and it was about nuclear or chemical warfare, and the part that always stuck with me was a mom bathing her child in a sink and realized the child was bleeding from their rectum and the sink water was full of blood. The entire family ended up dying if I remember right. I think the dad lived long enough to bury his whole family in the yard. I only watched that one time and honestly I probably wouldn't watch it again. I think it was a movie called The Day After Tomorrow. I might be wrong about the title though. I watched it with my mom when I was a kid and it was about nuclear or chemical warfare, and the part that always stuck with me was a mom bathing her child in a sink and realized the child was bleeding from their rectum and the sink water was full of blood. The entire family ended up dying if I remember right. I think the dad lived long enough to bury his whole family in the yard. I only watched that one time and honestly I probably wouldn't watch it again. Logan's Run, it's a bit of a cult classic. In the future, there are limited places for humans to live, so everyone has an expiration date regardless of how healthy they are. Everyone has to die before a certain age. I won't spoil it in case anyone wants to see it. It's an old school sci-fi movie that I have loved since I was a kid. The Truman Show. It's 25 years old and it accurately foresaw the reality TV era. It embodied the paranoid feeling of us being watched 24/7 before we were. It even highlighted how advertising would intrude our daily lives. That film was incredible on so many levels. Honestly, THX 1138. Not even sure my interpretation is the intended one, but I connected this story and images in that film to the very real possibility of mental imprisonment. The potential for AI to mentally imprison us with false mental images in a false reality. Not a movie but the shows, games, and TTRPGs of the Cyberpunk franchise feel really terrifyingly realistic to the point where you could easily believe the horrors people commit in that franchise would actually happen if that setting was real. Not a movie but a series called Upload. To live in a near future where you can upload your conscience to the keep living in the cloud, but once you get there the corporation owns you, like when you upload a picture to Instagram. I'm going to go with one not mentioned yet. Gone Girl. The look on Ben Affleck's face at the end terrified me. He was trapped with a psychopath and the movie just ends. It's even scarier knowing that could happen to anyone. I don't know that Threads is necessarily always considered a future film, but it's definitely the most horrifying look at a possible future for mankind that I've ever seen. Terminator. There were literally AIs speaking in their own language already. We couldn't figure it out so we shut it down. Shit's scary and not as far off as people think. I could picture a xenomorph-like species being created by some psycho wanting to destroy everything. Maybe not a humanoid android, but a crazed scientist for sure. The Rover. A film where some Australians decided Mad Max was too campy and decided to rectify the situation. I think Mad Max, and The Road Warrior paint a pretty realistic vision of what a world short on resources, after a nuclear holocaust, might actually look. In comparison, I thought that BBC's Nuclear Holocaust Threads was much more terrifying and depressing than US TV movie, The Day After. Children of Men hits hard and it has some of the best long takes that captures the savagery and desperation of humanity. The episode of Black Mirror Nosedive. I was more horrified at that scenario than in any horror film I've seen. Not really The Matrix but the idea where the AI program Agent Smith becomes so self-aware he wants out. Really? How could it be anything other than Ex Machina? This will be the downfall of humanity. 1984. Both the book and the movie are phenomenal, look them up. Book written by George Orwell. Idiocracy. Been said too many times but it's more a documentary than a film at this point. The Road. Society has collapsed after a nuclear exchange. Cannibals and other fun stuff. Threads. Post-nuclear war movie from 1984. Pure horror that has haunted me since 1986. Code 46. It's all the more horrifying because it's a sort of fucked up love story. Idiocracy. When it came out I thought it was a comedy, but they were visionaries. What is with all the bot questions that put a space before the question mark? Contagion. A movie about a coronavirus outbreak, that predated COVID-19. No one mentioned 12 Monkeys yet? Found it super realistic and scary. 1984 because it's happening as we speak. Idiocracy is a close second. How would we know it's realistic if the future hasn't happened yet? Well, with AI now becoming pretty powerful I would say The Matrix. I feel like that pretty much happened already. Idiocracy will always be the answer to these kinds of questions. Slaughterbots. Mad Max. Won't be long until we're all fighting over fuel. It's looking more and more like Idiocracy might be it. Looks around at the last 6 years, Idiocracy? Confused face.